This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is the matter of Patch versus Miller. Ms. Patch, it's my understanding that you're suing Mr. Miller for injuries that you sustained when he fired a weapon at you and you fell and hurt yourself. You believe it's all his fault. You're asking this court to award you $15,000 for your past medicals, $5,000 for your future medicals, $20,000 for pain and suffering, for a total award of $40,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Miller, you believe that she better be glad you didn't hit her. She's in the wrong place, wrong time, all her fault. This is not your fault. True?
That's right, Your Honor.
Well, let's get into the legal sauce. Tell me about that night that led you to this incident.
Well, Your Honor, I'm actually an ER nurse at the hospital, and I was lucky enough to get a job at the same hospital that my father works at, and he's an orthopedic surgeon. And he is, you know, since I was a little girl, I've wanted to be what he is. I want to save lives. I want to do what he does. And
I should have had girls.
Well, Your Honor, the night of the incident, I had worked a double shift and I was exhausted.
It's yeoman's work. Nurses are our heroes, for sure.
They really are. And, you know, my dad had called me earlier that day and said, come crash at my place tonight. You do not need to be driving home because I live an hour away. And he only lives about 10 minutes from the hospital. So he said, just come crash at my place. I don't trust you driving that late at night. You know, I was getting off my shift at 3 or 4 a.m. I'm exhausted. I can barely form sentences. And
you got a good dad.
I do. At the end of my shift, I end up calling a ride share and I go outside, and as soon as I get in the car, I pass out. I'm exhausted. And the next thing I know, I'm being, you know, woken by the driver saying, you know, we've arrived.
So Mr. Miller, how long have you lived in this community?
I've been in the community almost 10 years, Your Honor, and it has been a quiet community up until the night when this woman invaded the sanctity of my home.
Outrageous.
What do you remember about this night?
I was home, I was watching Westerns. They remind me of a time when people took personal responsibility for their own actions.
Oh, please.
Yes, sir. All right. So, Miss Patch, tell me, how did you're awakened by the driver in the car, then what happens?
I get out of the car, I am half asleep. I mean, I am, you know, kind of stumbling up the driveway, but, you know, my dad had told me, I'm gonna leave the back door open, just come on in, I'm gonna wait up for you. So, you know, I walk in and I start calling for Dad. I'm like, Dad, like, I'm home, just wanna let you know. And all of a sudden, I see a silhouette of a man coming down the stairs, expecting it to be my father. And, you know, I can hear him yelling, but doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why my dad would be yelling at me. I'm coming in, it's super early in the morning.
Okay.
And I get closer to him and realize that's not my father. And, you know, before I could even react, this man, Mr. Miller, had cocked his gun and fired. And I cannot tell you, Your Honor, how scared to death I was for my own life. And here I am trying to save lives every day, and I'm scared for my own life at this point.
So you went into Mr. Miller's home thinking it was your dad's house?
Exactly, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so this really shocked you.
I mean, when I say I was half asleep, I was full awake at this point after he cocked his gun and shot it at me.
Now, Mr. Miller, tell me what's going on. How did you know that night that something untoward was happening?
As I said, I was watching TV, I heard a noise, turned the TV down, and I could hear it clearly. Somebody was breaking into my back door. So I grabbed my gun.
The door was open.
It was open,
I
Mr.
grabbed
Miller.
my gun like anyone would to defend myself
Anyone?
and my property.
You keep your gun ready?
Exactly. That's why I have it. I'm a licensed gun owner, and so when I came down the steps, I see an intruder in my kitchen.
And you've got your gun in your hand at this
I've got
point.
my gun in my hand. I was yelling at her to stop. She kept moving towards me. I cocked the gun so she knew I was serious. I fired a warning shot out the back door.
But there were no lights on. What do you think was going to... How did you know it was not going to hit me in the head, Mr. Miller?
At that point, she turned around and ran. I heard a scream. I went out. She had fallen going down the steps, and she wasn't moving. I called 911.
Your Honor,
so, Ms. Patch, you run out the back door, and that's how you're hurt?
Yes.
Tell me
Your
how
Honor.
that happened.
So, like I said, I was shook to the core as soon as he had fired that shot, and I am running for the back door. I'm in full-on fight or flight mode, and you know it's pitch black dark. There are no lights on, and so I'm only going by memory of how I remember the back door being. And I run out the back door, trip over 2 of the steps, and end up landing on my left side and breaking my shoulder, my shoulder and my ankle bone.
Now, Mr. Miller, you said she broke into your house. What did she do?
I was in my own home. She came into my house. All I knew was that I thought I was in the middle of a home invasion.
So you
And when I was
were
showing her
making
the gun.
commands to her.
Exactly.
Stop, get out of my house.
Yes.
Did you hear him say that, Miss
I
Pat?
had worked a double shift.
She's a zombie. She works 24
I'm
hours.
exhausted, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm sorry she was tired, but that doesn't put the responsibility on me. She still broke into my house.
The door is open. You keep saying breaking in. I've done a lot of felonies in my time. A break-in is they
Your
knock
Honor,
that thing off the hinges.
Your Honor, at that point, I didn't know if I had locked up for the night yet or not. But I know that she
4
was.
a.m.
I didn't invite her into my home. She didn't knock or ring the doorbell. She came
'Cause
in
I thought it was my father's
into
house.
the privacy of my home.
Were
All
you
I did-
frightened?
Yes, I was frightened for my life.
Maybe if you turned a light on, you'd have seen that I was just an exhausted
You know,
nurse.
when
Miss Pat,
somebody breaks
talk to
into
me.
your home, you don't turn
Talk
the
to
light
me.
on. You don't turn the light on and say, "Here, shoot at me."
But you fired a gun at her?
I did not fire the gun at her. I fired a warning shot out the
It was
back
pitch
door.
black dark. You don't know that if you weren't like
I'm
shooting
trained-
at my head.
I'm a trained-
Your Honor, completely
Miss-
irresponsible.
Dr. Patch, please stand and come to the podium. You were in your home that night.
I live in the same community, yes, sir. I've been there quite some time. I've been at the hospital 10 years plus.
So this is a pretty quiet community, right?
All the homes look the same. They're tract homes, and
Okay.
I understand the mistake. They all look exactly the same. I told her early in the evening, I'll leave the back door open for you. So she did exactly what, even in her diminished state, she would have done.
How'd you find out something bad happened to your daughter?
I prepped some food, assuming she'd be home at a point where we could at least engage, but it got later and later, and I fell asleep on the couch. In the midst of the night, I was awakened by a loud boom, which I found out was a shot, but I realized then my daughter's not here. And I ran to Mr. Miller's backyard, and there he was, waving his gun, hollering, yelling, and screaming.
And thank God my
Mr.
dad
Miller, is
came.
that
Who
what you were
knows?
doing?
Your Honor, I was standing there. I just realized that she was hurt. She was hurt because she fell.
She was
because
lifeless.
she had been
She was
in
laying
my
with
home.
my daughter.
I thought
And then
I
I
had
called
shot
911, and
Mr.
even
Miller.
though it wasn't his place to do it, I put my gun down when he
As my
when
father?
he said to. And you know, as a father, the first thing I taught my child was to be responsible for your own actions. And apparently, this man
I'm going to
forgot teach
protect
that
my
to his
daughter.
daughter.
You know, it's not often that I get 2 dads in here. This is a different dynamic for me. I'm a dad too. I've got 3 sons. Personal responsibility is important for everyone, gun owners as well as folks who mistakenly walk into somebody's house.
But, Your Honor, you will continue to protect your family and your dear ones.
Yes, I completely agree. I was
Mr.
protecting
Miller.
my home and myself.
He's pretty lucky, Your Honor. The fact that he
I
let
think
me-
everybody's kind of lucky, don't you think?
I mean, I'm very lucky that he didn't, accidentally shoot me in the head, and I wouldn't be here today.
Hold on,
But
Mr. Miller, I gotta tell you something. She doesn't look like a rowdy intruder coming in to harm you, at least
Thank you,
here
Your Honor.
today. So it takes me
Yes.
some time to get my arms around
Yes, Your
this
Honor. In the light,
vicious
in the light of
blonde
day,
nurse
in the
that
light
gets
of day,
in your
with this
house.
armed sheriff right here. Yes, we feel safe. At 3 o'clock in the morning, when an unknown intruder comes into your house unannounced,
A nurse
But Your
you
Honor-
don't
in
feel.
scrubs.
Now, how did I know she was a nurse?
Your Honor,
In
Your Honor.
scrubs.
Miss Patch, tell me about your injuries. You've got your arm wrapped up there. Tell me what happened.
When I fell down the stairs, I fell on my left side, and the only thing that was louder than Mr. Miller shooting his gun at me was the popping of my ankle bone. It was, I've never been in that excruciating pain before. It baffles me that this really didn't have to happen if he had turned on a light.
Dr. Patch, you submitted an animation to this court to explain your daughter's injuries. I want to put that up on the plasma screen and talk me through it. Tell me what we're looking at.
Yes, sir. Thank you. May I?
Could you come over to the plasma?
As an orthopedist, I have access to these animations. And as my daughter ran off of the platform, she experienced an everting or an outturning of her ankle that actually caused the tips of both the tibia and the fibula to be broken completely off. Now,
And come through the skin?
through the skin, a compound fracture. The uniqueness of this injury is that some people never fully recover.
Oh, I know that was painful. I see your face, Miss Patch,
I can barely watch
reliving
it,
this.
Your Honor.
So, doctor, what do you do to repair that?
There are pins, there are plates, and some people have to live with those the rest of their lives. The silliest things. If you go through the airport security, you're going to beep, you're going to get patted down. It affects your life in 100 different ways.
Just
How
because
could
of
it
this
happen?
trigger-happy maniac.
Sir, you can return to your podium. So, Mr. Miller, I mean, this is a bad result. Your heart's got to tug a little bit with a young woman with this kind of injury. It's a permanent
Your Honor,
injury.
I feel bad for her injury. That doesn't make it my responsibility.
Don't you think your reaction was a little bit too much?
But he has some responsibility.
If it had been an armed invader, would we be even questioning about this now? Or would we...
Excuse me, Your Honor, it was not an armed invader, and I don't think we do what-ifs in the courtroom. This is my neighbor, Your Honor.
It's a
We
gated
have
community.
attended homeowners association meetings before. We have
Okay.
a wonderful
And
community.
has seen me, Your Honor. I'm not hard to miss. I'm not going to lie. I'm 6 foot tall and I'm a redhead. He probably would have seen me had he really looked.
So, doctor, you said about the homeowners association, you've seen Mr. Miller before?
Mr. Miller is a happy participant in our homeowners meeting, and he makes no bones about the fact that he is ready, willing, and able to defend anyone and everyone in our community because he is a gun owner. And he is very
Your
quick
Honor,
to
I
tell.
do not apologize for that. In America, it's my legal right to own
But
and
he
be trained to use
advertises
a gun
it, Your
and to
Honor.
use a gun to protect myself and my property.
Well, maybe lock your door
And so
before
that y'all
goes to a gun.
understand, in our country, as long as people use guns legally and responsibly, the law protects them.
Absolutely, sir. But you said responsibly.
Exactly. Mr. Miller, is it fair or unfair to say you're a gun enthusiast?
I'm grateful for my right to keep and be trained to use a firearm and to protect myself and my property.
The problem is not everyone is responsible, and frankly, not everybody should have a gun. Folks, I think I've heard what I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff, you, Ms. Patch, you've got to prove three things. You've got to prove that a wrong by the defendant, Mr. Miller, caused your harm. You've put up evidence today that you simply made a mistake and went into the wrong house. You went in thinking that your dad was going to greet you. Instead, you get a gun fired at you and you run out, trip and fall, tear your body up, and you're going to pay for it the rest of your life. Mr. Miller, you believe you got the right to defend your home. You didn't know what was happening that night. What you did know is that you needed to get that person out of your house. You could have shot her, but you decided to shoot over her head to make sure she knew that you were not playing and she'd have an opportunity to escape unharmed. The legal bottom line here is that everyone must be careful to take care of their own safety, both by mistake and by gun owner. Here you were wrong. You picked the wrong house. And you are very fortunate that he did not shoot you. You, on the other hand, you had every right to defend yourself, and although you may have overreacted, the law does not hold you responsible under these circumstances for defending your home. I find against the plaintiff. Despite the severity of your injuries, the law compels me to find against you and in your favor, Mr.
Yes.
Miller. That is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned.
Yes.
Mr. Ricci, it's my understanding from the documents that you filed with this court that you sustained injuries at Miss Gray's salon, and you're asking this court to award you medical expenses of $10,000, pain and suffering of $70,000 for a total award of $80,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Miss Gray, it's your position that you provided the service he requested, and this is not your fault. True?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, let's get into the legal sauce. Mr. Ricci, what brought you to Miss Gray's salon this day?
Well, Your Honor, as a software engineer, I don't really get the chance to meet a lot of women. I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I still don't have a ring or anything like that to show for it. I met this wonderful woman named Debbie, and we had been talking for a good long while. We've been texting, and it finally came down to the point where she not only wanted to go on a date, but she wanted to go on a trip. She wanted to go to the beach.
That's a truth or dare moment.
I was actually a little bit self-conscious about something that my friend Dave told me. He said that I had to do something about my organic sweater, so to speak, my body hair, Your Honor. I have a lot of it, and he said she'll think it's gross. I need to do something about it. So he knew of Miss Gray's establishment, and he set up the appointment for me.
So your friend told you needed a little manscaping to kind of clean up for this date and the beach appearance.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Gray, tell me about your salon.
I am the owner of the Elizabeth Gray Salon. We specialize in facial and hair removal. I've been in business for about 10 years. We offer so many choices, from laser, which uses a beam of light, to electrolysis, which is electricity, to sugar waxing as well, which is we just rip it right off with a strip.
Okay.
So we offer a lot of choices. About 75% of my clients are women. However, in recent years, Your Honor, I've seen a lot of men coming in for some grooming, waxing some obvious places and not so obvious places.
So guys get more wax than their chest.
Exactly. Everyone likes a little grooming and look their best. I really believe, Your Honor, that if I can help not only women, but all people look beautiful, that inside it will help them feel better about themselves.
So when someone comes in for hair removal, particularly a man, you take it off where they want it taken off.
We do. We make sure that we go over every step with them.
So Mr. Ricci is not really any different from your other male clients who want their chest to be bare.
No, he is not.
So, Mr. Ricci, what happened?
They take me to this back room where there's no windows or anything and get me down to just my boxers and a robe. So the wax lady comes up to me and she asks, "What's your pain tolerance?" And I figured since my bud Dave could handle it, so could I, so I just said average. They started off with just one patch of skin, and it's one of those things where you just think that it'll get easier as it keeps going, and that just was not the case. They started off by getting this kind of like the stick and rubbing a little bit of the wax on one half of my chest.
Okay.
And then
Now, it wasn't hurting yet, right?
it was already getting there, but I was just trying to bear through it.
Okay.
So she gets out the piece of paper and she presses into my skin. That's when I really felt like something was not right. She rips it off and a piece of my skin with it. And she just kept going over and over again until my skin just looked ravaged. It was bubbling, it was blistering. It did not seem like everything was all right. I asked the wax lady, "Is this supposed to be normal?" And she told me, "Quit being a baby, man up."
No.
It was a harrowing experience, Your Honor.
So this is what that wax did to your skin?
Yes, Your Honor, and it's still painful just standing here in this shirt.
Is that how this is supposed to work, Miss Gray? That sounds like a torture chamber.
No, Your Honor. That is not how it works at my salon.
Well, how is this supposed to work?
Well, at the time of this incident, I was in my office doing some filing papers, and one of my estheticians came running back to me, and she said she had provided a service to Mr. Ricci. He ran out of the salon without paying.
All she cares
She
about is the
even
money. When I
tried-
had to run to the ER
Your
for
Honor,
second-degree burns.
Our process at our salon.
But isn't this simple, though, that you put hot wax on the skin and you rip the skin off, then it's not supposed to be that way, right? Isn't it that simple?
Actually, it's not that simple,
Okay.
but we offer various choices to remove hair. And we tried to talk with Mr. Ricci. He did not want to hear it. He
Your
started
Honor, I was
waving
on my
his
lunch
hands
break. I was just
all
trying to get
around.
in, get out.
He
It's supposed to be
was
something
in
simple.
And out. That is not the process of our salon.
What options did you
We
get?
offer laser. That's when we use a beam of light. We offer electrolysis using electricity to burn the hair follicle. Sugar wax, a substance over the subject where we use a strip to take off the hair in the opposite direction of hair growth.
So if he had used these other options, then he wouldn't have had these injuries?
Exactly. If he would have listened to what my esthetician was trying to tell him, but instead he would not.
Your Honor, it wasn't that I wasn't listening. It was that I was getting pulled into the appointment before I even had time to ask any real questions. You guys said, "Oh, we have a line. We have to get going, Mr. Ricci."
Did they give
is
you
not true.
options?
No, Your Honor, they did not give me all the options.
Because you were not listening, Mr. Ricci.
If he doesn't understand the options, then it's pretty natural that he choose what you put in front of him, right?
And that's where he is not being forthcoming with the truth. We sat him down to make sure he understood his choices. And we
Okay.
offer many, as I've already stated. He would not listen. We even
But look
tested.
at his chest, Miss Gray. Hot wax, is it supposed to do that?
This is unfortunate, but however, we tested a patch of his skin with hot wax. He did not complain at all, Your Honor. He even said, "Oh, my tolerance level for pain is average."
What is your scale, the Spanish Inquisition?
And if he does not let someone know about if this hurts or it doesn't hurt, how are we supposed to know?
No, I
He
didn't know
has
I had to
use
come up with a
his
safe
voice.
word. before I came in.
Anytime we deal with cases that involve a pain tolerance, it's always dangerous to compare women's pain tolerance versus men.
Exactly.
We're babies. Y'all have babies.
That is
okay?
right, Your Honor.
You've submitted $10,000 in medical expenses to this court. Please explain your injuries.
Not only did I experience second-degree burns, they ravaged and permanently scarred my chest for the rest of my life. A guy like me doesn't get too many chances with Debbies. And these people, this staff at Elizabeth Gray's Salon have permanently damaged any chances of ever meeting another Debbie for the rest of my life. This is what her staff did to me, Your Honor.
That looks like that hurts right now.
It feels like sandpaper every time I try to even move my arm.
Ms. Gray, you see, these are real permanent injuries.
He did not say anything that he was in any pain. He just kept silent. This is the first time I'm
Silent.
seeing
I was rolling
to this
around on the
extent.
table, panting, and I asked her, was this normal? Was this supposed to be happening? And she told me, "Man up, quit being a baby."
Mr. Ricci, I'm not as brave as you are. I've never had manscaping. So I've got to understand exactly how this happens from a technical standpoint. This court has consulted an expert esthetician, Miss Erin Renee. Sheriff, will you get Miss Renee from the hallway, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell the truth next time, Mr. Ricci.
Talk to me, folks. Good day, Miss Renee.
Hi.
How long have you been working as an esthetician?
I've been an esthetician for 14 years. I did bring a model because I wanted to show the process of hair removal with waxing. With the hot wax, all estheticians who perform this service always check the temperature of the wax before they start removing hair. And we check the temperature on ourselves by applying a little bit on the inside of our arm here. And that way, we know exactly what the client is going to be experiencing. So I'm applying the wax on the direction that the hair actually grows so that you're able to get all of the hair follicles out with one pull. I I am always honest with my clients, and I try to understand their threshold for pain before we get started with the service. In his client intake form, he filled out all of the questions, and he said that his pain tolerance was pretty average, and he also said that he's not on any medications that would make his skin hypersensitive to the waxing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it. Yes. So you'll feel it.
Now, I'm seeing his reaction. He's got tears in his eyes. Mr. Robbins, thank you for coming in here. How did that feel?
It hurt.
Miss Renee, he got second-degree burns where his skin was ripped out.
I won't say that's typical or it's not supposed to necessarily happen. However, there are different things that will impact your results. One, what did he do before the waxing? Whether it was laying out by the beach or going to the pool, hanging out, whether it was doing a lot of drinking before he came in to get his service. There are different things that can impact the results.
Thank you, ma'am. You are released. Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Mr. Ricci, I gotta ask you, were you drinking, taking medications? Did you go to the beach?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I present to you a disclosure form?
Sheriff, if you'll retrieve the disclosure form.
Thank you very much.
It reads, Wax Services Client Release Form. Number 1, have you ever been treated for skin cancer? You mark no.
Correct.
Number 6, are you exposed to the sun on a daily basis, or are you considering spending more time in the sun soon? You mark no.
Correct.
Number 7, do you use a tanning bed?
Listen.
You mark no, and then there's a signature next to the customer signature indication. Is that your signature, Mr. Ricci?
Your Honor, yes, that might be my signature.
So you lied.
How do you know he lied?
I have a witness who can corroborate my story.
And your witness is Miss Alice Roman.
That is correct.
Miss Roman, would you stand and come to the podium?
Absolutely.
What did Mr. Ricci lie about?
Well, I was in the waiting room with Mr. Ricci as he was talking on the phone very loudly. I wasn't trying to be nosy. And I overheard him saying that he was at the tanning bed prior to coming into the salon.
You went to the tanning bed, but you said no on the form?
I didn't even have time to really read them before they dragged me to the back, eager
So
to get to their
once again,
torture.
you were not listening and not even reading the questions.
Folks, let me give you a legal lesson. Anytime you go into a business and they have you fill out an information packet or an application, it is very, very, very important that you be honest because they have to rely on your representation. Ms. Roman, you may be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Gray, so your esthetician put the wax on her arm?
The esthetician actually tested his skin, Your Honor. And he did not complain. He did not say anything. Oh, my pain tolerance is average.
I think I've heard what I need to hear, and I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff has to prove really 3 things. You got to prove that the defendant was wrong. That's number 1. Number 2 is that that wrong caused your injuries. You've put up evidence here today that you totally relied on Elizabeth Gray Salon to take the hair off your chest so you could go on this romantic journey with Debbie. Instead, the esthetician put the hot wax on your chest and ripped your skin off, changed your chest forever, and destroyed your opportunity, potentially for the love of your life. Ms. Gray, you have put up evidence today that your salon gave him several options, but he wasn't listening. He wanted this chest hair gone. He chose the hot wax. Your esthetician actually put it on his skin and asked him, is it too hot? When he didn't complain, she went forward with the procedure and he got burns. You've pointed out that he was not quite forthcoming on the application where he indicated that he had not been in a tanning bed. In fact, he had. Here, that collision of the evidence raises 2 legal principles. One is care for your own safety. You have a responsibility to take care of yourself long before you look to someone else to take care of you. Part of that is being truthful on the application form. The other legal principle is professional judgment. Although manscaping and hair removal is common, it is a profession. It's why estheticians have to be licensed. Here, that professional judgment involves not only application of the wax, but whether to do it in light of the circumstances. The expert witness put the wax on her own arm to see if it was hot. The evidence in this case, your esthetician tested the wax on his skin. Your salon is responsible for Mr. Ricci's injuries because your professional judgment is not relieved based on his misrepresentation. You still must exercise professional judgment in determining whether the wax is too hot or not. It is very simple. It was too hot, should not have been put on, it caused real injury. This is your fault. I find in favor of the plaintiff, and I'm going to award you a total award of $80,000 against Elizabeth Gray Salon. That's my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned.